I want to talk about the process that we're in. And the processing, first of all, the text will be out tomorrow. Tomorrow you'll have the text in full. That's a week before I think we'll probably move or do anything on the CR. So there'll be no ifs, ands, in betweens and guessing and assuming and things of that sort. That gives everyone plenty of time. And you know, I thought about this, and I've watched this whole thing unfold from all different sides. I guess the old saying that politics makes strange bedfellows. I got to be honest with you, I've been around for a long time in state politics and federal politics. I've never seen stranger bedfellows than Bernie Sanders and the extreme liberal left siding up with the Republican leadership in the caucus. I've never seen this happen. So it's come to me, what I'm hearing is it's like a revenge politics. And basically revenge towards one person, me. And I'm thinking, this is not about me. This is about something that Bernie has never supported anything about permitting reforms. And you're facing a country today, we've passed this out to you, I think, permitting timelines. If you look at what we do in the United States, 5 to 10 years, that's the minimum. If you look at basically states that have, countries that have vigorous environmental oversights, 1 to 3 years, 1 to 3 years. And then if you look at what's happening now because of the energy crisis we have in the Ukraine war, you have EU is considering emergency bypassing of all environmental reviews, and we don't think we're in a crisis, and we're not going to do anything about it, and we can. And then you look here at the energy prices. Look what the people in America are facing right now. 200% increase of natural gas. Natural gas increases to regular gasoline's up 67%. Residential electricity, 15%. And then look at what's happening as far as overseas, 1,100% increase. Did you all get one of these? If you haven't, we have them for you. And this is what we're talking about. What are we facing today, and how do we basically get through this? I'm hearing that the Republican leadership is upset, and they're saying we're not going to give a victory to Joe Manchin. Joe Manchin's not looking for a victory. We've got a good piece of legislation that's extremely balanced, and I think it'll prove itself in time. The bottom line is how much suffering and how much pain do you want to inflict on the American people for the time? I can assure you, basically, the longer the time goes, the more the price goes up. That's what we're facing in America today in energy. And if we don't do something, and if we don't believe, and I've always said this, the energy that we produce in America is cleaner and can be even more cleaner than energy produced, fossil energy produced around the world. So if you're going to replace the energy and help backfill, shouldn't you replace the dirtiest that's produced around the world? But yet you have a situation where we've been looking at other countries to do what we won't do for ourselves. I couldn't accept that. I just couldn't accept that. That knowing that we can, and we have the ability, and we have the resources and the know-how to do it more, to do it better than any place else. And we refuse to do it. And basically we look at inflation, which is a tremendous, I mean in my state of West Virginia, but I know everywhere in the country, it's a tremendous factor in the quality of life that people have today. And the quicker we can do that. And the only thing I can tell you about inflation, only one way to get out of inflation, you got to work yourself out of it. You got to produce yourself out of it. So when we talk about inflation or from inflation reducing, if you're not producing more product to put in the market, I can guarantee inflation is not going down anytime soon. If you're waiting for the Federal Reserve to put the rates so high, federal rates and basically interest rates to where it just discourages you from spending or buying or doing anything, I'm not in that camp at all waiting for that to happen. I think we can take action. So I can go home and explain what I'm doing. I've always said if I can explain it, I'm fine. I vote for it. I support it. But to have an opportunity that I know there's part of my Democrats, the caucus, and the far left, liberals, that Bernie is so proud of, we're never going to be for this. I knew that. This is a bipartisan. It doesn't pass without the Republicans. And to have something that my Republican colleagues, and the leadership knows this better than anybody in Republican, you know, and they'll see this when the text comes out, and they know that basically what they've tried to do. And I says, I applaud my colleague, Senator Capito, for putting something out and dropping a marker, a messaging bill that they support, that they supported. They support permitting reform. How in the world do you go home and explain it? Well, the perfect just wasn't perfect enough, so the perfect will be the enemy of the good when you've had no movement. Now, if you think that just wait until we get in control, we'll change everything. Well, first of all, you run the tables in 2016. You had a Republican president, you had a Republican House, and a Republican Senate. You didn't do anything in energy permitting. So if you run the tables, you basically run the tables in 2022 in November, here in a month or so. You're going to have still the President of the United States. That's not going to go anywhere. And it's proven that if you run the table in 2024, you can't do what you couldn't do in 2016. So when do you ever see you're going to change the permitting to we can have the American people get relief from the high cost? When you take a pipeline, the Mountain Valley Pipeline, nothing puts more product into the market quicker and helps relieve the shortages that we have right now. That pipeline's gone from $3.3 billion over $6.2 or $6.4 billion just because of the permitting process they're going through. So I'm just saying we're looking at it in a reasonable, responsible way. Take me out of it. It shouldn't be revenge. If Bernie's upset with me, fine, I understand that. But let's look at the American public. Let's look at our constituents. If my Republican friends and colleagues and the leadership in the Republican Party is attacking me personally, take it away from me personally, because that's going to be hard to go home and explain, well, we did this and we voted against it because of Joe Manchin. Makes no sense whatsoever. None whatsoever. So we're in this quandary right now. They're going to vote, and it's going to be in the CR. Okay? And if they're willing to say we're going to close down the government because of a personal attack on me, or basically not looking at the good of the country, this is what makes people sick about politics. It makes me sick about it. You know me, I vote across. If it looks good, I don't care whether it's a Republican or a Democrat idea, I'm for it. As long as I can explain it. A lot of it makes sense. A lot of my Republican friends do things that I support, and a lot of them are Democrat. And there's things that both do that I don't. This type of politics is something I can't accept. This is the type of politics that makes me sick and makes the American public sick. And if we make the American people pay for something that we could avert and change permitting to where we can cut costs down, put more product in the market and reduce your prices, put more product in the market, whether it's going to be gasoline at the pump or it's going to be at your home when you're paying your utility bills, and helping our allies who are in one hell of a war for survival. If we can't rise to that occasion, God help us all. With that, I'm done with my talking, and we will start. Yes, ma'am.
Has Senator Schumer changed his promise to you? Or
No.
He's still committed?
Not
to
at all. Not at all.
So it sounds like your conversations with Republicans have not been fruitful.
No, they have been. I'm saying leadership's taken a role on this, and I understand the leadership in Republican. These are still my friends.
So you don't anticipate getting enough Republican support to break a filibuster?
Let me just say, no, I'm having, they've been saying they want to see it, okay? So they're going to see it tomorrow, which is way ahead of probably when we vote. So they'll have at least a week probably to see it before we vote. And if they're going to try to justify the perfect, do we throw caution to the wind? No. Do we make you go through the environmental process? Yes. We just accelerate the time, the same as they do in other developed nations. That's all we're doing. You'll see all that in fine print tomorrow. With that being said, if they're going to basically double down, after you get 47 senators on the Republican caucus, I believe, is that the last count, I think, that signed on to Senator Capito's bill, which is pretty much in line with what we're doing. And now they're going to say, well, I'm so sorry, it's just not perfect enough, and has Joe Manchin's name on it. Whatever the reason, how do you go home? I couldn't go home and explain that. And I would like to think at least 20 or 30, half or 25 out of the almost entire caucus that supported and put their name on a bill, and it's always been one of their main goals to pass permitting, would at least be able to say, hey, this is the first time we've had positive movement. First time we've had positive movement. And you tell me another time in your lifetime, which is all of us, and some of us aren't as young as we used to be, in our lifetime, you're ever going to see this opportunity again. I don't know. So they'll have to answer that. I think, yeah, okay, right here.
Thanks, Senator, for doing this. Can you talk about your approach with Senator Capito, your plans to talk to her going forward? And also, can you answer Republicans' criticisms that I know many of us have heard, it's been reported. They say they just can't trust you, and they feel betrayed from what happened at the end of the last work period with the Inflation Reduction Act and the PACT Act.
Yeah, I would like for you all to ask any one of my, and I still consider every one of them my friend, and we're going to work together on many things that we agree on, that why they can't trust me and what I might have said that lost their trust, because the only thing I have ever said when I was asked on the floor or whatever, are you going to bring back BBB? Is there going to be another big bill? I said, ain't no big bill. BBB's dead. There ain't no big bill. You'll never see BBB again that I could ever support in any way, shape, or form. I made that very clear. I said, but if I get a chance to do something with energy, I would do it. And as the Ukraine war escalated, what we had, and what we're in a world crisis right now, they're in a crisis in Europe, we're getting an inflationary crisis that's basically we could relieve and not do anything. I said, why wouldn't I do that? And they said, well, why was it so secret? I never thought we'd ever get there. Why was I going to put myself back out to where I've been for the last on BBB and taking what I did? And they said, oh, that felt so good, I'm going to try it again. I never thought we would get there because I'm looking for a balanced path. I want to make sure that we can produce enough energy to be energy independent and secured in this nation to remain the superpower of the world. You cannot remain a superpower of the world if you don't have energy independence. If you're depending on other people to produce your energy, you will not maintain our status. That was my main driving force. I had a chance to basically develop and write a bill with a very competent staff that gave us a pathway to produce the energy we have in the cleanest form of fossil while we're investing in the energy of the future. Everyone was happy when at first, okay? And then they started thinking, well, I really don't like that part of it. I really like this part of it, or vice versa. I'm sorry. We need to have energy independence. That's what I'm all about.
And Senator Capito?
Senator Capito?
Why not work?
She's still she's my friend.
How directly are you planning to work with her?
We have talked. Her and I have talked on. She says this is a messaging bill. I understand that. I would, if we had that.
She told you it was a messaging bill?
Yeah, well, we all know it. I mean, basically, if it was a majority of Republicans and I'm putting a bill, it'd be messaging, right? So, yeah, the facts are what they are. But with that, I would hopefully that she'll see the content, which she says she wants to see. She'll be seeing that. And I wish they could have seen it sooner. We've been working on it and scrubbing and getting it ready for the CR. She'll see that and hopefully make up her mind that this is much better than anything we've ever had and everything we're ever going to get in the future. And to come back home to West Virginia, I would assume that if it's in the bill, I can tell you, if it was the Republican leadership doing what we have been trying to do, I would gladly vote for it, okay, and to go home and say we have been able to produce more energy. We have a product coming out of West Virginia that's going to help our country and help the world, and I'm proud of all that. Real quick.
Are you willing to see the government shut down over this?
I'm not shutting the government down. I'm voting for it. So whoever votes against it shutting the government down.
But are you
Yes,
willing
ma'am.
to, if the government does shut down, there will be people who blame you because you pushed to have this included in this Schumer side deal as Republicans are.
There's no side deal. There was never a side deal. This is all one. It was one package we worked on from day one. Okay, so you all have labeled this as a side deal. I'm so sorry to deflate you on this one. There's never been. Basically, it didn't fit into the reconciliation, so it was separated, and that's why it's in this, and everybody agreed on that. Yes, ma'am.
What do you see as the big differences between your bill and Senator Capito's bill?
I think, basically, I can tell you real quick on that. We do not bypass any of the environmental reviews. We do not bypass those. So if you look at theirs that bypass it, ours that doesn't. With that, we just basically accelerate the time frame, and I think that'll be very clear.
And what do you say to liberal groups who say that your plan will be harmful to the environment, that it'll do damage to communities and
What's doing damage to the environment right now is the dirty fuel being produced around the world with absolutely no oversight whatsoever, whether it's from Venezuela, Russia, wherever it may come from. The more we can put out in a cleaner fashion than it's ever been done in the world, and we do it better than any place else in the world, that helps replace the dirtiest. That's what really helps the climate, sir.
You mentioned that everyone agreed on including this permitting reform as part of the broader agreement on the Inflation Reduction Act. Do you feel that other Democrats are doing their part to help them get this bill across the finish line?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Senator Schumer has been very clear and direct. I appreciate very much. This is part of the whole thing. If you want to fight inflation, if you want to basically fight the climate, and if you want to reduce the prices and the pain that people are feeling, you've got to produce your way out of it. You can't sit back and wait for it just to happen. It doesn't. And that was all part of the whole conversation when we got serious about we were getting close to where we could agree on things. But that didn't happen until July. I mean, everyone thinks that this is, we just kept our heads down and our feet to the grindstone and just tried to make something good happen. So you never give up on trying to improve things. The easy thing, guys, you all know this, the easy thing for me is to say no, and let's walk away and do nothing. After the BBB and all that fiasco and everything went down, that's the easiest thing. That's not what I was sent here to do. It's not what the people in West Virginia expect, whether they agree or not until they know more about what we're trying to do. I'm willing to continue to try to improve, that's all.
Senator, some Democrats are quietly saying this could easily find its way onto the NDAA Why is it the CR or nothing?
Well, the CR is the thing that we all agreed on, that we felt it was the most important thing that we could do and get it done because it was a part of this entire package we put together. We wanted to do it as quickly as possible. I think there was one right here. Now I'll go right to you, sir.
Are you also involved in trying to convince skeptical Democrats to get on board, or are your efforts mainly focused right now on the Republicans?
Well, I think, I've had conversations with everybody. I always do that and try to answer questions or thought processes. The thing the surprise of the bill that was passed, and this was part of all one negotiation on the bill that was passed, the surprise of the bill, how it came forth, there were people upset on both ends. The Democrats felt more elated about it than the Republicans being out in the dark. But I just never knew it would happen. That's all. I can't be any more direct with you than that. We never thought it would come to fruition because we had to make some bold changes. When we have the crisis we have, the president recognizing the crisis, wanting to fight inflation, everything else they're trying to do, this was the most reasonable, responsible thing to do, and that's how we did it. So I'd work with everybody, yes.
Does the White House support your bill? And if so, can you tell us about the conversations you've had with them?
Well, the White House has been very supportive. The president is extremely supportive. It wouldn't have happened without the president's support, I can assure you. And they have been very straightforward. I'm very appreciative of that because everyone has done exactly what they said. Speaker Nancy Pelosi was supportive and been very supportive. So let's just see where it goes, guys. Over there now.
On that note, Speaker Pelosi has suggested that they may strip it from the CR, so how confident are you that Democrats will follow? I've had a great relationship with Speaker Pelosi, and I trust her. So we just say she has to do how she handles the House and how she works with her colleagues there, and I trust her to do that.
Is there specific language in there mentioning the Mountain Valley Pipeline to streamline it, the permitting
Yes.
process?
Yes, there is. We have nothing else in the country that can put that much. We're short basically in our forecast for gas shortages, gas supplies that we have, storage. We're short in this country, and we're trying to help not only ourselves, we're trying to help our colleagues. Our friends abroad. This one pipeline takes care of the shortages. In 1 year, will take care of the shortages we have in America, and be able to backfill and help our allies around the world who are desperate right now for energy. I'm going to have to go for the votes open, okay? But I appreciate everything. Thank you all.